Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, scholars and dignitaries, welcome to another episode. Welcome to my world.
Hello, friends. So, back in college, I had the opportunity to study under several professors who were former FBI agents. I've never seen such loyal, dedicated, and well-trained professionals in my life, and I was proud to have them as professors. But I have a question right now that's haunting me. What happened? What happened to the FBI? How did one of the foremost law enforcement agencies in the entire world turn around to the degree that they did? I mean, seriously, they've been instrumental in stopping bank robberies, counterfeiters, the growth of communism in the U.S., domestic terrorism, and everyone remembers the top 10 most wanted list the FBI put out every year and how they caught hundreds of felons with information from the public who saw those posters. So the FBI was started in 1908 and charged with domestic intelligence and the security of the nation. And most everyone knows one of their first directors, J. Edgar Hoover, and his demands on loyalty, patriotism, and hard work and dedication. There probably has been no equal in the world to the work of the FBI, with perhaps Scotland Yard coming in a close second. Now, here, I don't want to paint the FBI in a negative light. After all, although it's always had a slight political bend, the countless people working there remain committed, loyal professionals. In fact, several have come out as whistleblowers to tell the shenanigans the FBI has been up to more recently. Here's just one example. Everyone knows that the FBI raided President Trump's home at Mar-a-Lago. Seriously, they raided his home because of some suspected classified documents that President Trump either knew about, didn't know about because they were mixed in with his personal belongings, or had the right to take with him from the White House. But instead of working with his lawyers to return said documents, which was already in process with other documents, by the way, and instead of working with local authorities, as is the standard operating procedure for the feds, they amassed a force of some 30 federal agents to execute a search warrant at his home, and this, again, was an unprecedented action. And that's not the worst of it. The FBI had specific authorization to use deadly force. Deadly force against a former president for an unverified documents case. What were they thinking? And I know that it is standard policy to include justifiable deadly force by the FBI when indicated. But again, this was a search warrant for a document situation, hardly a federal case, and certainly not the federal case that they made out of it. I mean, they never raided Hillary Clinton for what she had, or Biden as senator or as vice president, when clearly both of them were in violation of federal law. Nor did they raid Clinton, Obama, or Bush, or anyone else for their documents. So one might logically maintain that this was selective prosecution, and again, backed by unnecessary deadly force. But here's a better example. There have been over 250 attacks, fire bombings, and instances of vandalization on crisis pregnancy centers, churches, and pro-life organizations and groups over these past few years. And I believe many of these would even be classified as hate crimes today. And yet, instead of investigating these attacks, the FBI actually began targeting pro-life people and even traditional Catholics for investigation and arrest. And they staged early morning raids and again arrested and prosecuted Catholics, even to the point that a congressional hearing was held to explore the insanity of this targeting by a governmental agency in the Department of Justice.
Mr. Ray, thank you for being here. I noticed with interest in your written testimony that you said, and I'm quoting you now, the FBI uses all tools available at its disposal to combat domestic terrorism, which now apparently includes the crime of being Catholic. Let's talk a little bit about the FBI's egregious targeting of Catholic Americans. By the way, are Catholic choirs now, are they breeding grounds for domestic terrorism? Is this your latest theory? How many other parishes have FBI agents approached priests and choir directors to ask about parishioners? You have done so, and your memo explicitly asks for it. Your memo labels traditional Catholics as racially and ethnically motivated violent extremists in need of investigation. You have a list of churches, a list in the memo. You've repeatedly said we don't target churches, we don't list churches. They're listed in the memo.
And they found that the FBI actually released a document within the organization saying that, quote, traditional Catholics are a big domestic terrorist threat in the U.S., and that as a group, they should be watched and investigated. Now, I assure you, if there is actually one group that absolutely does not believe in violence, that absolutely does not believe in shooting, murder, or the taking of life, it is the Catholic population. They believe in the fifth commandment, thou shalt not kill. And they believe in the teachings of Jesus, who said, quote, the greatest commandment is to love God with your whole heart, your whole soul, and your whole mind. But the second commandment is no less. Love your neighbor as yourself. So somewhere here, the FBI became confused and mixed up with their priorities. Instead of investigating Antifa, the anarchists, or those behind the BLM burnings of the cities, or organized crime or domestic terrorists or the cartels, or who's behind the mass shootings, they instead chose to focus on a quiet religious group, sort of like picking on the Amish or the Mennonites, people who haven't done anything wrong. Oh, and by the way, if you did an analysis of people in prison by characteristics, you would find that the least likely person in prison is a practicing Catholic, someone who goes to church weekly, practices the sacraments and the holy days and the feast days. There are few, if any, Catholics among the 2 million people in state and federal prison today. But not only that, they've made several other major mistakes, including going after and storming law-abiding innocent families or people exercising their constitutional rights, again, with their guns drawn. Did you know that the DOJ issued a letter of 13 charges that can be used against parents who protest at school board meetings? And in one congressional hearing to investigate all this, James Comey, the previous director of the FBI, answered, I don't know, I don't understand, and I don't recall 236 times to Congress. Yet, he remembered enough to write his book. So, did the FBI get lazy? Did they get sloppy? Did they change their priorities after all these years? Well, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to answer that, but suffice it to say that the FBI was at one time the champions for the people. And right now, they have to make sure they do not become the abusive tools of the rulers. Hey, be safe, be well, and let's continue to support our law enforcement agencies, both the local agencies and hopefully the federal ones as well.